Good morning, good morning. Well, it is a windy and soon to be rainy day here in South Georgia as Hurricane Tropical Storm / Debbie rips through Florida. Right now it's got its butt cheek sitting on top of Tallahassee, and we have yet to endure its fury, but I am sure it's coming. But in the meantime, before we go down to wiping our bums with pine straw and digging water out of the ditches, we got time for a little bit of a podcast. And again, you guys have the most awesome questions on the internet, which is pretty fantastic. And as a follow-up to our Power Hammer video the other day, we have a great question that is going to come from Bill Chesser at 1475. Okay, for part 3, what is your opinion between a tire hammer and something like a coal ironworks press for the blacksmith wanting to go beyond their 3-pound hammer? Which is a fantastic question, and it has a really interesting answer. So that's what we're going to tackle today. So the wildest thing about all of this is that I've got when I absolutely was in this position, I had a little bit of money, and I had seen folks making hammers. I got on the hammer train there for a while, and I was like, really, if I'm going to do this, I need a press. And I was right. That was the way that you efficiently did hammers and things of that nature. It was a cool deal. And so I looked up the plans, bought a couple plans online to kind of educate myself about how they were built, and I ended up building a 40-ton press. And I'm going to tell you, that was, in my blacksmithing career, I have to tell you that as far as like really interesting, unexpected lessons go, the press is the one that taught me my last one. So, now, specifically to the question, look at me being all topical. If you are looking to upgrade and trying to decide between a power hammer and a press, we're going to have to go back to one of the old axioms that I know I have beat you guys in the head with. Trying to decide which one of those tools that you need is the wrong question. You've got to tell me what you're wanting to build to start with, because there's 2 ways to go about this. Either you get a new tool and you explore what you can do with it, or you're trying to make some money and you've got a specific thing that you're trying to get better at making. And that's a really important distinction, because one of those is playing, one of those is profiting. So at the end of the day, if you're out there just kind of having fun and kind of kicking around, doesn't matter. You're playing, you bought yourself a hobby toy, and both of those items are going to have cool stuff that you can do with them. Now, however, if you are looking to actually produce, you're actually looking to do some profit, well, now you need to tell me what it is that you're making. If you are going to be doing a larger quantity of Damascus steel, especially for the knife makers, of course, you're going to be doing hammers or things like that, or really and truly axes, anything that has a punched eye, then hands down, 100%, the hydraulic press is where you're going to want to be. Okay? So just on the top level, if you're just kind of doing general purpose work, forging stuff out, drawing and tapering, making a lot of hardware, power hammer is going to be your way to go, and I would highly suggest getting nothing under a 110-pounder. But if you're going to do those specialty sides of things, Damascus axes, anything with a punched eye, your press is going to be your option. So let me just get that kind of too long, didn't read out of the way. Now, let's get into the fun details about what I learned when I built a hydraulic press. So, guys, when I got my power hammer, which is a 110-pound self-contained Sahindler hammer, man, I was absolutely on cloud 9 and have been all this time. That is I love that machine. It has been the enabler of my life on that end, and it has got some power. I can beat the snot out of 2-inch square stock. 2-inch. I mean, buddy, I can do the damage to it. It's got a tall enough ram that I can use top tools. I can punch things. I mean, it has been a phenomenal tool unto itself. But I'm going to tell you something, boys and girls. What I did not understand is that my 110-pound self-contained power hammer is a finesse tool. 100%. It is a finesse tool because when you are working the steel, unless you are just sitting there doing heavy tapering, everything that you're tapping, you're hitting, you're tapping, your top tools, you're kind of tapping. Now, you're tapping it pretty freaking hard, but it is still a finesse tool. When I built my 40-ton hydraulic press, that is when I understood that the press was power and the hammer was finesse, because I had received some, I believe it was 3-inch round stock 4140 from a friend of mine that he had gotten from work, and I was going to reduce this down into some hammer blanks, which is usually for our small ones, it's usually like 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. Buddy, I first attempted to do this with the power hammer, and because of the sheer size of this thing, it took me 7 or 8 heats to get this thing down into something that was manageable. That was the first chunk. And again, I had to kind of baby it a little bit, spread it out very evenly. I then built my hydraulic press, and the first press that I used almost mashed the damn thing in half. I'm talking, it said, and it's done. And it took me a moment for my brains to recalibrate themselves, because I was like, Jesus Christ, what just happened here? Even though my press is a forging press, so that means the ram moves a little bit faster, so it's not as powerful as the slower press, but good Lord. I can only imagine if I had slowed it down a tad bit, just what it was able to do. I mean, it went through this stuff like it was just butter. Freaking insane, right? The press is really getting into an industrial tool and a manufacturing tool. And I'm going to say manufacturing tool because it is completely dependent upon the tooling that you really have in there. You can forge with it, yes, but it is not, because of the cyclical rate, it's not something that you want to do a lot of quote-unquote forging with in traditional sense. What you are looking to do is you're looking to mash this into a particular profile, and that means tooling. Being able to set up a hammer blank and to be able to punch it directly in the center quickly and effectively is where this tool shines. It also shines very much when you're trying to do Damascus, because when you're doing Damascus, you need good, even pressure across that top to get the appropriate bonds. And I'm going to tell you, boys, now a power hammer is good, okay? Power hammer is good for Damascus steel, but it cannot hold a candle to what the hydraulic press can do for Damascus. Flat out and period. That is the reason that over in India we have so much Damascus. And and if you guys don't know this particular term, there's a tremendous amount of Damascus that comes in from overseas. And we turn our nose up at it because it's quote-unquote manufactured. But these guys are using hydraulic presses and they're using roller mills to make what is regrettably, and which upsets me a bit, very good quality Damascus, damn near flawless Damascus in mass. Now, that's the other thing. Now, it may not have a great temper on that end of it, but Damascus is a real thing. Holy crap. I mean, you have to give it credit because of all the crap blades that I have seen made out of it, right? I can talk about the crappiness of the blade. I can talk about the crappiness of the workmanship. But the one thing that I cannot get around is how consistent their patterns are, how typically flawless their patterns are, because they're using this larger industrial equipment like the presses and the roller mills. And guys, this is where we talk about economies of scale. Damascus was once this super thing because it took so long to do. It was so difficult to produce. And then, of course, India and Pakistan come along and say, hold my shawarma. And for every nasty thing that you may have to say about that end of it, they do a hell of a job because they've got the right equipment. And part of that equipment is going to be your press. So Now, right now, my press, when we got out of hammers, my press is sitting down in a friend of mine's place named Mike Moulton down in Bainbridge, and that is now kind of the core of his shop. They have done a lot of tremendously good work with that thing, but I am probably going to end up building another one as we get back into production in the shop. But if you are in your shop and you're looking to make that upgrade, the first thing I'm going to tell you guys, if you're doing Damascus, go with the press. If you're doing anything else, go with a tire hammer or a self-contained hammer. Now, there's going to be very few of you that are going to, be able to drop, even for a used hammer, the $7 or $8 for a used self-contained. If you've got the money, please God, go get a self-contained. But if not, man, there are tire hammers to be had out there, and they will do you just about everything that you need to do. I've been asked about the utility hammers because they're cheaper. I'm going to tell you, with all due respect to Big Blue and to the other utility hammers out there, they are just not my first choice simply because they require the extra air compressor. I don't particularly like them. I ran my Kenyon hammer for a very long time, and I don't feel like that they do the work that I need them to do at the level of my shop. There's some big ones out there. They certainly hit hard. You can certainly put tooling up under there, but they're kind of, for me, they were always that intermediate that wasn't worth it. The mechanical hammer will run for freaking forever, completely repairable. You need no specialized parts. And I believe they tend to be cheaper than the utility hammers. And you don't need the air compressor. You just literally, I was down at the Florida Blacksmith Association, and on their power hammers, their tire hammers, they have these basically these trailers that are loaded with all their equipment. They have a bolt-on axle that they bolt on their power hammer, and they just, out of the trailer, they just start rolling power hammers out across the grass under a tent, and they stand it up and they plug it into a 110 outlet, and boom, power hammer. So it's really, really hard to beat that. So guys, like I said, that's going to be kind of the take. I could go on at length and run my mouth, but I think that sums it up pretty well. If you're looking to make that jump, like I said, I would absolutely recommend the tire hammer over the press. But if you want to get into hammers and axes and Damascus, boy, nothing can beat the press. The only other caveat I'd throw in there is tooling. The press is most effective with tooling. So if you don't have a welder and a way to actually make a lot of the tooling to go under it, you're not going to get what you really need out of it. So run that into your factoring as well. But outside of that, guys, we have come to the end of yet another morning podcast here at Purgatory. Again, I want to thank you guys for being here. And stay safe out there. For you guys in Florida and Georgia, don't float away. Put on your swimmies. Make sure you got your swim trunks at the ready, and be safe. And remember, don't drive in the damn water. Turn around, don't drown. You idiots. Talk to you later, guys.